Hey everyone, Granblue here, back with a new Granblue Fantasy Relink video. For today's video, I want to go over the, in my opinion, two most viable playstyles for the captain right now, and talk about how the DLC has changed them, whether they're nice to play, and just give as much information as I can about the captain, just because I know there's a lot of interest in playing them with the new changes with the DLC. So this unfortunately won't go too in-depth about the entire build-up towards the end game because I love to talk, and if I do that, this video will end up being 4 hours long. So to cut it down, I'll be getting straight into the builds, like your basic rotations, and then doing some bare minimum explaining about how the kit works now with the DLC, in case you have played in the base game but you don't know what's happening at all with the new expansion and want to know as much information as possible. So getting straight into it, there are two real so if you don't know, the DLC, Endless Ragnarok, has introduced a style tree, which means that you get 3 options to choose from. You can see here that there's 3 levels to these perks, and if you don't fully spec into it, you only get the level 1. If you spec into all, or you can only get level 1 and then fully spec into get all 3. So realistically, the only 2 you care about as captain are going to be Crux Substitute and Insight Artfully Adept. Unfortunately, Essence Combat Healer is really bad. A very fast TLDR over how damage now works in this game. Obviously, we have damage caps still, but the main thing is that damage cap is heavily diluted. So the thing is that damage cap obviously scales very linearly. That means that if you add 100% damage cap to 100% damage cap, you have 200% damage cap, and that's not like doubling your damage, that's increasing it by 50%, because you've gone from doing 100% more of your original damage cap to 200% more of your original damage cap, but that is going from 100% to 300%, right? So that's not, so that last 100% isn't adding, it's adding a good amount still, but it's not adding as much as you think, which is just math nerd talk for at some point when you have linear scaling, you don't want to continue to linearly scale those traits up because it's giving less and less value compared to other things that might stack on top of that in a multiplicative way. And unfortunately, Combat Healer falls into that trap where it is giving you damage cap, which is just bad, unfortunately. Like you can see here on the perk 1, 2, 3, it says plus damage cap, or even the damage cap buff. That damage cap buff isn't multiplying your damage cap entirely, it's just adding that damage cap to your existing damage cap. So you're adding at style rank perk 2, you're adding 10% damage cap to 2000% of your existing total. So even when you play Essence Combat Healer, you it's just not really that good because you get so little actual damage for playing support, and if you're playing support as captain, you aren't taking damage skills, which just harms you overall. So that's why Combat Healer as a fully spec'd into perk, in my opinion, is really bad. But that first level is honestly quite decent, because if you don't know, in combat, active attack buffs, they end up amplifying your damage by half of its listed amount. So this 10% attack buff is actually a 5% damage amp. The only issue is that it seems like that type of buff, the ones that are active through your own active attack buffs, they don't apply when the enemy is in overdrive. I'm not sure if the link time and SBA chain stuff overrides that anti-overdrive clause. I've asked people and they don't seem to have an answer quite yet, but just be aware that this attack percent is mainly only useful if you're SBAing them when they're not in overdrive, or when you're seeing free DPS on some other monsters. So it is really good. It's especially decent in Sir Barrel parsing, because obviously Barrel is never in overdrive. And yeah, it's just it's a really good one-line perk, because even though the 20% damage cap is pretty relevant, it's still some damage, and you do get it for free because of how the master traits work. You are forced to spec into it anyways, so it's just a very nice freebie there. And also the perks themselves inside are quite nice, even if the overall rank perks are pretty bad. But going into the actual builds, we'll start off with Insight Artfully Adept. This is your more bread and butter captain perk that's going to be playing the most closely to the DLC if you did play generic DPS. For skills, I guess before we go too deep into it, my standard 4 skills are going to be Decimate, Clarity, Armor Break, and Reginliev, mainly because these skills are all quite fast, they do good damage, and Clarity ends up being buffed pretty massively by the master traits. Now keep in mind that Clarity, while it is very good, this is minor spoilers for the final difficulty in the game, so if you don't want to hear about that, skip a minute ahead. But Clarity does grief you in Infinity Bahamut Versa, because in that fight, you want to actually not cleanse Dark Flame off of you. So for one fight in particular in this game, you don't want to have clarity, so you do have to swap to like either Rage or Overdrive Surge or Bailings or anything else you want. But otherwise, clarity is the strongest buff for the captain right now. So yeah, going into the tree itself, you can see that the important nodes to have are going to be things like the power raise buffs. It's going to be stuff like combos raise arts level by +1. That's also quite nice. And then, actually, honestly, like, this tree is pretty weak by itself. You do want the cooldown reduction, because that does add up pretty quickly. But otherwise, it's all just, like, generic, like, DPS things that aren't actually enhancing your damage that much. There is a conversation to be had about whether or not this power raise, charge time, this one in particular, with the damage cap increase, if this is worth it, because when you take this off, the charge reduction is slightly noticeable. So this is essentially like half of a quick charge. So if you take this off, you'll notice I still have 16 selected. You can put it into slightly, like, more relevant, like, disputable, but you could put it into stuff like, I would say like this crit hit, in case you don't have the mastery perk. Like, if you don't have like 20 crit up from your overmastery, you could put it in here instead, and you probably max out your crit, and then that lets you you know, take something else for OM. So there's a lot of questions about whether or not this power raise is worth it. It's kind of an interesting thing about the character is that, like, the damage cap is slightly okay, but once again, because damage cap is a linear scaling stat, it's like not that, it's not as important to have it as high as possible nowadays. You do still want a lot of it, because it still does add a decent amount, like percents of damage, but it's like, do you want the quality of life of having a shorter charge time so you can get the last hit off of your power raise plus in really hectic fights, as opposed to getting like that 1% more damage from having this damage cap percent to begin with? So, hard question, obviously. In Style Rank 3, we have combos raise art level by 1. I haven't done the math on this yet, but I'm pretty sure this double dips into Fearless Drive. So you're not only getting that one, like, -2% CDR from the arts, like, level ups, you're actually getting +4 or -4%. So this is really, really important to have, obviously, just because not only can you stack it faster after you lose it, I'm pretty sure it's also giving you more value. But I could be wrong on that. I haven't tested it, but it feels like you're getting much faster CDR than you did before. And then the other important one here is going to be, or rather two important ones here, are going to be the power raise damage dealt percent. As said earlier, damage dealt is very, very powerful. And then the damage cap plus 20% per basic sigil type equipped, just because as we'll see in my fully finished equip setup, you will want to have at least 4 of these for like 160% more damage cap from grid alone. And then HP is always nice. One thing to know is that you do have to have 6 of these nodes selected. So if you're wondering why I have this poison thing clicked on, it's because without it, I lose all my level ups there. So that's why I have that. And then for EX, pretty much the same thing. I have this insight one clicked just because I'm a bit insecure when it comes to having my cap fully maxed out. And also, there's not many things in here that you want to click on that are super powerful. Like, you want to get the damage caps, obviously. You want to get the you know, like the guard break is okay versus some things, I think, if you're going to get used to tapping that. The shield on perfect dodge, I'm not even sure if it's relevant or not, but as we'll go with the other things, like, you'll see that there's not many other buttons you can click to begin with, so it's not really, like, there's like 4 floating points in the 3rd tier when you're playing Arts Adept. And yeah, for the other tiers, we'll see in Combat Healer, take 3 of these to trigger it. The Clarity buff, I think I haven't talked about in this recording, but the reason why Clarity is so powerful is because it has one line in each rank where it says grants damage percent 5 or 5% damage amp, which obviously is very good. So Clarity will end up proccing Combat Healer for you. It'll give you 15% damage amp, and all that together is very, very nice. It's actually way more damage than adding like Overdrive Surge or another damage ability to your bar, because this is enhancing all of your damage overall and also giving you some more tankiness, because Clarity obviously heals you. And between Clarity and Regen, you can drop Potion Hoarder once you're more confident in fights. And then obviously down here, you have a few floating points in the 3rd tier. I guess second tier, second tier doesn't have anything useful to talk about, because you can see that all of these are like for the spells you take. The debuff damage cap is like probably relevant for now, but you're never going to take Panacea to spell Revive or Miserable Mist on arts, right? So you're just going to drop those. And then Clarity is good. Skill damage cap you take because there's not much else going on in the other trees that you'd want to take. And then max HP is just nice to have to be a bit tankier. For the 3rd rank, once again, you want to get the Clarity buff. Damage cap is okay. This attack percent, once again, not really relevant, but maybe if you're a bit concerned about not capping in the early game, you can take that. And then everything else is like kind of whatever. The armor break cooldown reduction is nice. There will be a certain moment where you will see like a brief pause in fights without this armor break minus 5% CDR, but you can just like tap your power raise dodge and tap it again, and then it'll be functionally the same thing in fights. Like this, not having this node can impact you a little bit, rarely, but unless you're fighting a silver barreled, the uptime for Captain isn't that high, so you can survive without like the extra 4 seconds of cooldown reduction on armor break by not taking this. And then yeah, the Veil thing is interesting. The 10% supplementary damage is okay because it is a more impactful damage amp than damage enhancement, damage amplification itself is if your allies have their own sources. But ironically enough, I think this Veil buff is actually worse damage than the Clarity buff, assuming that your allies do not have damage amp in their own kit. Just because of how Clarity interacts with the multiplication effect of War Elemental and Elemental superiority. So this one looks good, but not sure if it's really useful. And as mentioned earlier, you don't want to take Veil or Clarity for certain fights in the game. So even then, it loses some value. And then for EX, once again, the armor or the Clarity buff, armor break getting more defense down for the non-OD phases of the game, and then just more damage cap clicked on. This damage 20% and damage cap 50% thing is kind of hard to take on the Captain, honestly, because you spend so much time running around and being in melee range that the debuffs actually do end up really wrecking you. So like whether it's like skill sealed and SDA sealed from Lucilius, or even just like the movement restriction effects from like the world or buffs or like all these like push pull things, this ends up being like this makes it way harder to move in those scenarios, and you're so dependent on walking as Captain. So you really can't take this because the way you mitigate this is being forced to take like firm stance and stuff. And I think you'd rather just like lose the 2%, 3% damage from not having this 50 cap than like having your life be way harder because you chose to take it, in my opinion at least. And yeah, that should be, I think, it. I think the crux, again, not much. You have to take 3 points here because there's not much else going on. This tier, I just clicked anything because, once again, there's nothing else really going on with the other stuff. Third tier, HP, because you are probably supposed to run 4 to 5 defense or support sigils anyways, so that's 40k HP for free. This third tier is a bit more contested as well, so you like it's like you can choose between attack percent if you're once again insecure about the thing. You can take skill damage cap, even though power raise is a lot of your damage as Arts Doncho. Your skills still do a pretty healthy amount, so it's even that's not wrong. And then for the EX tier, once again, just more damage. The most important ones here are definitely stun power and damage dealt, because this damage dealt is attached to War Elemental, so it's a 30%. It increases your elemental superiority damage from 20 to 30%, which is obviously quite fat, so you don't want that as well. And yeah, as a quick, I guess, gameplay check on how the Arts playstyle looks. So the reason why I go these 3 things to begin with is because this way, again, this is like assuming perfect deck time, but you can tell why this is nice to have. So if you use Reginliev at the start, you can fully charge your thing, and then you can use Clarity, dodge out pretty early, and you start cycling your skills. And you'll see that after 2 power raises, Reginliev does come back off cooldown immediately. So this is really nice for SBA chains, right? Because now you have a really good uptime here. So it's not a perfect 100% because of how the CDR works, but by the time you're at this point, the SBA chain is pretty much over. But if you still want to continue, you can do the classic XXY, XY combo, and then you'll be back to full CDs on everything. So that's why that's why I'm pretty sure that the master trait that says Arts raised by 2, I'm pretty sure that's double dipping drive, because you're allowed to reset so much faster compared to before. And yeah, that is pretty much a basic rotation. It's a pretty easy rotation, you know, skill, hold, cast, you know, press Clarity and dodge out of it if you have it, armor break, hold, cast, Reginliev, hold, cast. You can even use Decimate. I think Decimate might be, I'm actually not sure if it's better. I think Decimate might actually be a longer chain. I just use ODS or armor break out of habit because it is a defense down buff, which obviously benefits your team. But there's a chance that Decimate's better because maybe you can loop it back in. But regardless, I haven't had a reason to like go extend past that point in actual fights. And in generic gameplay, like when the boss is running around, what will happen a lot is that you'll be using like Reginliev to charge and then charging your power raise and just chasing them down. Oh, I didn't even talk about my grid yet, so look at my grid really quickly. Sorry, I jumped ahead of myself with the gameplay. So yeah, for my grid, this is a pretty late game grid. It's a little too... I mean, it's a little squishy, honestly, and it'll be missing a lot of defenses that you might otherwise take on other characters. But that's mainly because of the fact that I do think that the captain needs a lot of this, like, quality of life through the utility sigils. So, going to the actual trait tree. First of all, my summons are, right now, I think, HP, no, my bad. It's, supplementary damage, Berserker Echo, Spartan Echo, and Stout Heart. So those are the 4 things that are pretty easy to get in the summon tree right now, and they fill out some things that are quite nice. The only change I would like to make would be to replace the supplemental damage summon with a War Elemental summon, so that I can flip this War Elemental into either a basic sigil or a blue or pink sigil to get that value from the mastery traits. But otherwise, it's a pretty standard DPS loadout. You're gonna run Ventus, 63 damage cap because of how the math works out now, 45 supplemental, you know, Zerk, Echo, Spartan Echo, and then War Elemental. That's pretty standard. You will notice I'm missing Celestial Aqua, and that's mostly because, once again, I am like a bit insecure with the gameplay, so I'm taking a lot of these other things that are, I think, necessary. If I were to swap out something for Celestial Aqua, I have heard that Fatebreaker is actually the thing you take out for Celestial Aqua, because the damage amp from Aqua is better than Fatebreaker. The only reason why I haven't done that is because I think the Fatebreaker is like, I just don't want to bother with the change on improved dodge. It wouldn't be too hard, but yeah, just keep that in mind when you're looking at my build and wondering where Aqua is. I think before I made a change to my build, my Aqua was where my Immortal Shell was, which is, I think, a damage down, but Immortal Shell is, you have to do a bunch of like minigame or like a bunch of like treasure hunting in the story again to get this, but it's quite decent. Like the math says that it's quite good and better than like Celestial Lumen and some other stuff, so that's why I have it. And you will also notice I don't have Celestial Lumen, and that's because, once again, with the captain, you are very, very melee, and you'll be eating a lot of damage, for the most part, in my opinion, just to get like your power raise off properly. And so Celestial Lumen actually ends up being inactive for a lot of the fight, which is fine because for the redstone, or not the redstone, but for the trait you take on your Terminus, you can go Drain, which will heal you a lot. I'll try to remember to edit the video to like have some short showcases of my HP going up with Drain and Regen, but yeah, Drain and Regen, or Drain and Clarity, are the reasons why you can opt to not take Potion Hoarder on Captain once you're a bit more confident in fights. And then yeah, required utility, in my opinion, is going to be improved dodge. You can cut Untouchable if you really want to. I think it's pretty good, but if you just want to walk, then that's totally fine. Especially like if you don't have the, or rather if you have the movement restriction buff or debuff on the mastery traits, you need either Untouchable or you need Firm Stance to survive a lot of mechanics in the fights. So if you don't have that, then Untouchable is pretty flexible. Like this could also be my Celestial Aqua if I wanted it to. But then besides that, Nimble Onslaught, 16, the 2-second invincibility is very noticeable. Once again, almost required in order to maintain uptime when you do get the reward of perfect dodging. And the SPA Gauge Drain is quite nice. For Uplift, I think if I was playing with pre-mades, I would stay at level 16 or 1 sigil line for Uplift, because that is usually good enough if you're playing with confident players. But when I'm in open co-op, I actually want to get Uplift 32 so that I can be the leader for the SBA chains, because a lot of people don't know when a good time to SBA is, and so they'll just hold it. So having at least 30 Uplift will allow you to, assuming you have good uptime of course, allow you to get SBA fast enough for most mechanics in the game when it comes to infinities. So that's why I have that here. And then you can go to 45. 45 is a bit more redundant, like you will be racing ahead quite fast, but the issue is that once again, like in open co-op with random lobbies, sometimes your teammates won't have enough SBA gen to even catch up if you have too much. So that's why I don't think you need 45 SBA. And obviously, if you're playing with friends and you have like a certain thing going on, you can just make the judgment call whether or not you need 45 or not, right? Like you'll know if your friends can charge quickly, you'll know if they don't charge quickly, and pretty much like it's just a judgment call at that point. Like you'll know if it's good or not when you play. And then for the defensives, like true defensives, I have Guts on my Redstone. Guts is quite nice just for a catch-up mechanic, and obviously if you have... Sorry, my throat's like acting a bit weird. Yeah, my Guts is a good catch-up mechanic, and so between Guts and Auto Revive, you technically have 4 lives. And Guts, once again, with Regen and Clarity, is quite nice, because you'll heal up pretty quickly after like a Sprock. So you can treat this as 4 lives between 4 lives you can get an auto revive. Once again, no potion hoarder because between clarity and drain, it's pretty decent. Like you could still run it. You could cut something for potion hoarder if you really wanted to, but there's a point where you have to get good out of fights, and I think cutting at least 1 line of protection is good for forcing you to get better at playing the game. And then Fearless Drive is once again really important for the CDR. Again, with the new mastery trait, I'm pretty sure it's giving you double dipping on this, so that's quite nice for your rotations. And then Fearless Heart, if you're running Celestial Aqua, then Fearless Heart is just 100% uptime. Aqua obviously gives you a bit higher of a multiplier, but it's only when you're on Link and SBA chains, whereas Fearless Heart will almost always be 10% no matter what, so a quite decent grab. And then obviously the issue with Fearless Heart and Drive is that you have to go through Transmarveling to get these, which can be quite a pain in the long run. Like, you want damage cap on both of these, but sometimes you just can't get it. And yeah, one last thing, I don't really know how to set this practice, so we can just go on instant skill cooldown because I don't think I can set up the Link level properly. So just pretend that this is me in Link time, because this will essentially be your combo Link time. So in Link time, ideally you want to pre-cast Clarity before the Link starts, because, so for example, you can do it here, right? So you can cancel Clarity's animation with the Link attack pretty quickly. Like, you can tell that's a very, very fast cast, and I have the buff already. And this is important because you can buff your entire team with a damage amp, which is quite nice for Link time. And then once you're in Link time, the rotation is going to be Reginliev, tap your Power Raids, and then tap Armor Break. Like, same thing you're doing with the general rotation, but instead you're just tapping, because your cooldowns will come back up. So, again, I know it looks a little different, because I'm on no CD, but this will work in a regular Link time. Like, this is the rotation you're doing. And it's quite decent damage. You'll charge a lot of SK by doing this. And yeah, that's probably it for the rotation for arts, and that was 20 minutes. Wow. Okay, I'll get through Crux a little faster. So when it comes to Crux Captain, I do have a build for this. Let me save this again because I feel like I always forget to save one of these updates. Like, my builds are always like updated and then I don't. I see. I think I'm members of the party. Whatever, it's fine. So the sub tank, you guys might have seen my videos on this already, so this might not be a big surprise. Because my HP went up a little bit because I had the unfortunate realization that I did not have my defense masteries maxed out for some silly reason. So I do have nearly 600,000 now compared to the 560,000 that I had in the past. But basically, this build is going to be going through the substitute, or rather the Crux the substitute trait. And so this is really big because this gives you the buff of Charisma. Charisma will be giving you a lot of damage amp. It's 5% perfect level, and it caps out at 50. So at the baseline, you're getting 50% damage amp. And if you look through their traits, you guys see that you get another 10% here through this node. And then down here, it's going to give another 20%. So it's actually 80% damage amp from Charisma alone. And then obviously, you can see on the second line perk that if you were to gain another level of Charisma at level 10, you would get 20% supplementary damage. And then if you don't know, you genetically run around with 60% supplementary damage, so that 20% would be roughly like a 14% increase to your damage as well. So there is value in casting Charisma and all that during your fights there too, which is quite good. And yeah, the third line has a funny little perk where it says when you take damage through substitute effect, your CDs get shorter. I think that's more of a pre-made thing, but there is some like murmurings going around that you can like generate a pseudo link time for substitute captain by having your allies intentionally take damage while they have their own form of damage reduction, as well as failings to get 100% damage reduction on their character. So you can just like sit in AoEs and just eat everything, and then the captain will just have like infinite cooldowns because of how that works. But I don't have clips of that because I haven't asked my friends to do that yet, but that is something that people have theorized and would probably work. But regardless, the failings, or rather the substitute tree, doesn't have much to talk about. A lot of their traits are really, really bad, in my opinion. So you're going to go for like generic 4-slot here. Just take anything that looks okay on this slide, obviously. Like, a lot of these are not that great. The substitute thing is like 50 damage cap is okay. Like, that's honestly not bad, but because like you have it almost permanently upward anyways, so 50% is also not that insignificant. And once again, you need 6 nodes anyways, so it's like, what's you gonna do with these? Also, might be able to take crit strike instead of damage cap, so I can do some other things with my overmastery. But regardless, besides that, third tier, you can tell that once again I've taken just like generic good things, and then the final tier, this Phalanx thing is actually quite good. As you might have noticed that like my HP has gone up, so this will give me nearly 60k shield for each Phalanx cast. And when you're playing properly, Phalanx's uptime is quite short. Once again, with the benefits, like I haven't confirmed this, but again, I'm quite certain that this combo +1 thing is double dipping. So that means your Phalanx cooldown, which was originally quite long, is actually now pretty short. So you're getting 60k shields to anyone who's tagged by Phalanx, which is very, very nice for obvious reasons. And then, yeah, besides that, nothing much going on. For the other clicks you would want to take, obviously, like with combat, healer, you can go a more supportive version of Substitute, and where you go clarity and stuff, but I wouldn't recommend it because you do still need damage. Like the main, I think there's not a misconception, I guess it is a misconception, but there's like the misunderstanding that the Substitute build should be a support build. You're not really supporting, you're a tank that's only tanking so that you can get more damage through charisma, right? And so you do have a lot of things that just happen to support your team, like obviously giving a 60k shield HP and giving them DR and taking damage for them is very, very, very nice. But in the end, in my opinion, when it comes to like optimally playing the charisma build, you're not looking to actually support your team, you're looking to selfishly support your own uptime, and then you just happen to help your team out while you're doing it. So that's why with the Crux, personally, my skill loadout is Decimate, Substitute, Phalanx, Reginliev, because that way you still have very strong damage uptime, you have very good SPA generation, and you still have a really good link time as well, because without at least Decimate and Reginliev, your SPA gen like goes into the gutter, because Decimate just gives you so much SPA, or because yeah, Decimate gives you a lot of SPA. And we can see that through this practice tool. I'll use Reginliev, Power Charge, and then Decimate. I also haven't looked at the build yet, but yeah. So you can see here, I'm gonna ignore link time. So with just this combo, also I'm missing. Oh right, they took out some stuff. That's my bad. Yeah, with that basic combo, I'm getting 20% SPA generation, which is quite good for obvious reasons. And then at level 3 arts, when you tap Phalanx and Substitute, that is already 100 DR. So that's why you want these DPS skills, because it helps you get to arts 3 a little easier and still get power raise active. And then obviously, the more you level up your arts, the more uptime you have on Phalanx and Substitute. And this build is a little outdated because I did swap out my Redstone, or what's my Redstone? I think I took out some CDR because the assumption was that Substitute would be active. And this isn't a barrel parsing build whatsoever, so that's the reason why I'm not as bothered by having Reginliev not fully reset by the time I'm here. And odds are pretty high that if I had arts at level 4, Reginliev would be resetting immediately, so it's not a big deal that isn't resetting now. And since I'm already in barrel, I'll go over the supposed, it's a bit out of order, but we'll pretend that I'll go over the build afterwards, show you guys what I'm doing. So the difference between link time in Substitute and link time in generic arts is that you don't have ODS to fill the time, or my bad, you have armor break in the middle to fill the time of like in between the casts. So instead, where is it? Instead, what you need to do with Substitute, once again, it won't look right because I have infinite CDs on, so just assume this is in link time and this will line up anyways. With this one, you have to do Reginliev. You can tap the first time to get Decimate on cooldown. You can do this, but then after this, you have to dodge and do this twice. And then you'll have Reginliev back up. And you do it again. And then you have Decimate back up. And so instead of only doing one, you have to do two. Which can be a bit more annoying, but it's about the same thing overall. Like the damage is a little lower, but the sacrifice is that you're playing. I mean, yeah. You can tell I have 600, like I have triple the HP. I had the other build. And to get that triple HP, we'll go into the build. So you can see here that I haven't updated this with the crab stuff yet, so I'm probably taking out one of the, what would I take out? I think with the crab thing, I would likely have to drop this war elemental. Like I'd have to get, would it be here? It's hard to say, honestly. Yeah, the issue with this build is that it's really hard to XP max while doing other stuff. Oh, right. I guess the main important thing is that, like, HP maxing on this build is a little bit bait because you don't need that much HP. You can see earlier that, like, I paused for a moment because I didn't have the CDR to loop the Reginliev and other things, and that's because I'm missing a Cascade node. I forgot to talk about the required stuff on Arts Captain earlier, but yeah, you do need Cascade on Arts Captain to do the loop properly these days, and without Cascade, you can tell that I just didn't have enough CDR. It's a bit of a mistake on my part. But I'm like 30 minutes in. I can probably cut in something post-recording, and I probably will. But regardless, you still need mobility. You still need to be able to dodge faster. The mobility issue isn't as pronounced because obviously I'm cutting out the that one thing that would grief you otherwise. I'm pretty sure. I didn't yet because I was too tanky. But yeah, again, this is a bit outdated, but you want to cut this out and go for a different thingy, just to let yourself not be as griefed by the CDR stuff. I haven't updated this since I made the video, but yeah. So right now, if you want to get the really funny number, you do want maxed out Aegis and maxed out Greater Aegis, but you can swap out some Aegis levels for, you know, for Cascade, swap it out for like some more utility. Like you can get I've seen, okay, there was a comment in the video before that like bragging about how they were one of the few people that knew about the value of defense. The issue with defense with the substitute captain is that, again, obviously you already have Phalanx and substitute. You see, even at level 1, that's 60 damage cut. And your uptime on these things is quite good, but once again, you're going to be assuming that you're going to be casting these at least Arts level 30 or Arts level 3. And when you're at Arts level 3, like, you don't need defense on this character when you have 100% true damage reduction, right? So that's why I stack HP over defense. Like, Steel Nerves and other stuff is obviously quite nice, but odds are very, very high that even in just even just walking around, you'll have substitute available, right? And the issue when you use substitute is that your allies, their damage when it comes in, isn't being reduced by the damage reduction. So it doesn't matter if your defense is high, what matters is that your raw HP is high, so that the extra like 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, 80, 90,000 damage, that is being redirected into you, and so you just need the HP. Like, you're not getting reduction on their damage taken through defense, you're just getting it purely as raw damage. So that's why you shouldn't be going Steel Nerves or Stronghold or Garrison as the HP Doncho, because you're either fully immune, you're heavily reducing damage regardless, or you're taking damage that you can't reduce anyways through these means. So yeah. And the other thing is that this captain still does really healthy damage. Once again, this Fate Breaker is probably the most flexible pick. Like, it's on my improved dodge, but this probably should be on something else. I have taken out the Celestial Ventus, the one that gives you more damage in exchange for healing, because that damage mod, again, still pretty relevant. Like, plus 50% on 80% is still quite a lot, but this way I can get some value off of other people's like random healing abilities like blue pots. But you could bring that back, like cut out Fate Breaker to bring back Celestial Ventus if you really wanted to. And yeah, regen obviously being high leveled is quite nice, just to give you the fat like 30k HP heals. You could go Divergence. Divergence is RNG though, which is why I don't want to take it. And I feel like the solution to Divergence is to simply just take the blue Sigil that prevents it from affecting as much to begin with. So this skill sealed resistance should be just level 30 in Lucilius. Like, I should be going double skill sealed instead of the Aegis here, just to prevent it from, you know, wrecking my combo. And that way I don't have to worry about like Divergence and stuff healing me, because that way I just have regen pulling all the power. So yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. And you can see here that my damage is, the cap is quite low, and I mentioned earlier that I think your SPA might not be fully capped if you have it this low. So let me just actually check that now, because I have one to confirm this, but I guess maybe it'll be easiest. All right, 42. Yeah, so you do need more, or else your Ogi will be fully capped, which it's like a big deal. But oh right, the other part is that your damage isn't high until you stack up your arts all the way. Yeah, I can see that like this is barely capping. Actually, this is a little lower than I thought it was. I forgot that I took stamina on this just to get the damage a bit higher. But also why I took the T-buff thing, so... Yeah, always be sure to check your outputs. Like, I obviously just realized that my cap is not very reliable at the moment, so... Yeah, that's why I was talking about here earlier, like, maybe there's a value in going for this attack percent, like, take this damage cap out and put this here. But, in the end, it's all up to you guys. Because this is, like, a very bulky build, and so some things here and there will be sacrificed to increase the bulk, but the ridiculousness of this number is mainly just for the shock value on thumbnails. You don't need 600,000 HP to properly clear fights in the game itself. But yeah, that's hopefully it. There's probably so much more that I've forgotten to talk about. Oh, I guess I could do a quick rundown on skills before I end the video. So, as I mentioned earlier, like these are really the only two things I think are worthwhile, but in terms of skills, you have a lot of options. In my opinion, Decimate and Reginliev are non-negotiables if you're going for a like real captain build. You can go support captain, which would drop Decimate, but as you noticed earlier, like Decimate and Reginliev, that rotation gives you too much SBA for you to really cut out, in my opinion, especially in link time, because you can spam Decimate so much more frequently in link time. But yeah, so the two flex slots would be where the substitute and phalanx are sitting. Obviously, with the Arts Dancho, we were talking about clarity plus armor break. So I think if you're going DPS, then armor break is also like somewhat mandatory, but you could swap it out if you wanted to. Panacea, if you guys have been playing the game, you might know that Cagliostro has the exact same master trait that the captain has when it comes to their healing spec. And so to me, there's a question of whether or not captain is one that is bugged or if Cagliostro is one that's bugged. But just to clear it up, this Panacea trait, this reads the exact same way that Cagliostro's reads, except when you take both of these on the captain, you only shield 10% of your current HP. With Cagliostro, it shields 99,900, right? So that's the reason why I'm pretty sure Cagliostro is the one that's bugged, but if it turns out that captain is the one that's bugged, then Panacea will end up being quite a good fourth trait for Arch DPS captain if you want to go for fat shields instead of damage amping your team for that more like sustain. And I do think that in that scenario, like captain is probably better than Cagliostro. I'm not gonna pretend to know what Cagliostro's cooldowns look like, but just knowing that captain's cooldowns are as ridiculous as they are, like the reductions that ridiculous, like you would most likely have way better uptime on Panacea than Cagliostro would have on her equivalent. So I guess we can just check right here really quickly. It's like curiosity. So you could like start the fight. Again, this is all assuming that like this will be worth doing at some point. I'm gonna pretend that you should be doing this now because again 10% of your HP is not that great, especially if you're playing DPS captain. That's like 17,000 HP. That's like almost nothing. Yeah. So we go through the rotation. We'll see if it comes up after one basic rotation, and if it does, then it's probably worth taking. But yeah, I think support captain is a little whatever, if only because of that. So I'm pretty confused why I'm not getting my Reginliev instantly. Armor break it. Yeah, so it does come back in time. So the uptime on this is really, really good if you're allowed to take it. So yeah, not bad. It just, again, it comes down to whether or not Cagliostro has a better version of what she's supposed to have, or if Captain is bugged to not have the super OP version of what Cagliostro has. But yeah, Miserable Mist is kind of useless. Defense down is apparently quite bugged and doesn't even work properly half the time on bosses. Rage, while it's supposed to be like the damage buff, the animation is way slower, and once again, the attack buff is disabled during the boss's overdrive phase. There is one buff or one node that gives it 10% damage cap, but only to yourself, and as we discussed, damage cap is really, really garbage. Overdrive Surge is probably still good for still carrying stun power, but a lot of bosses in this game have like some gimmick, and also like your teammates should just be having stun power. There have been a few fights like early game where I used ODS and I still didn't meet stun checks, so there are probably a lot of scenarios where this will save you run because you get the stun solo, but in my opinion, like in my personal experience, it has never saved me from a run where I wasn't stunning in time, so that's why I've dropped it. Clarity we talked about. Stall is just kind of bad. the cooldown's way too long, and all it does is slow, and slow is heavily nerfed in a lot of boss fights because otherwise the boss would be too easy. Revive, like, it's probably okay. There's not a way to make it a shield spell. Like, if you can make Revive into either res or a shield, it's probably better, but odds are people will have Guts, they will have Auto Revive, so Revive itself is just useless. Veil is just a worse version of Clarity in my opinion, so you could take Veil. You could take both Clarity and Veil with the supplemental damage. Like, that is probably a real thing you can try, but at that point I'd rather just take Armor Break. Like, there's not that many bosses that have such heavy debuff mechanics that you would need both, in my opinion. This spell is actually ironically quite decent in stuff like Lucilius, because if you didn't notice in the fights, like Lucilius and some other bosses will actually give themselves, defense up, they'll give themselves armor, they'll give themselves regen, supplemental damage, attack ups, so this actually does end up having some pretty good bonuses overall. It is only one buff removal, which I think is actually not true. I think this removes everything. Like, I remember playing this in Lucilius and it deleted everything, so I don't know if that was a bug or if there's a trait that I took, but yeah, this spell has some good value. If you're like struggling to kill the last like 10% on Lucilius, then this spell will unironically get you there for the most part if you use it on time. Conduction is a meme. This is probably like a pre-made thing because you can't trust randoms to utilize the increased SBA generation from Conduction properly, but it's pretty funny. And yeah, substitutes for the other build. So yeah. Video ended up being pretty long, but hopefully the information was all there, and all as well. As always, feel free to ask questions in the comments about my opinions on things, but hopefully this was thorough enough. There's probably a lot of information that didn't need to be in there, but it is what it is. But yeah, thanks guys for watching. Hopefully I see you guys next time, and yeah, have a good day or night wherever you are. I'm trying to pull this emote, but okay, well we'll do one roll before I end the video. Alright, anything good? Yeah, whatever. See you guys.